group here at Secure IT 360, coming at you with a new episode of the Cyber Threat Perspective. Today, we've got Tyler and Darrius on the podcast today to talk about sharpening your sword as a pen tester, or honing your skills, honing your craft, becoming a master, becoming a ninja, hacker, elite, warrior, cyber warrior, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So Darrius, Tyler, excited to be here again.
Oh yeah,
always.
Awesome. So we don't really have an agenda for this. I think it was just we just kind of wanted to have an open discussion about some of the stuff that we're doing on a day-to-day, week-by-week, year-by-year basis to kind of sharpen our skills as pen testers, to kind of improve our craft, become more valuable to our company, to our clients, to get better at doing this thing called pen testing. So I kind of think about this in a couple ways. One is, the technical aspects, and then the other is kind of the conversational, emotional intelligence, kind of like soft skills, if you will, side of things. So for me, I come from an IT background, right? I come from help desk and systems administration. I used to build my own computers as a kid and all that. So I, coming into pen testing, had a lot of technical skills already. I was very familiar with the technical aspects of it. That being said, I still spend quite a bit of time on the technical aspects of pen testing, right? I'm currently going through the CRTO course right now, which is highly technical. You use Cobalt Strike and it's red teaming in Active Directory. So there's a lot of technical components there. But something I think is interesting, maybe we just have a dialogue about, is kind of technical skills, soft skills, how we kind of are keeping up to date day to day. Especially with pen testing, there's new techniques, there's new vulnerabilities, 0 days, there's new everything. It seems like every week there's some new technique, there's some new tool that is doing something. So maybe just open floor. What do you guys think, just high level, in terms of, how do you stay sharp just at a high level? And then maybe we'll dig into some of the specifics.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things we do as a company that helps us stay sharp is our research and development weeks, where we just get free time to dedicate towards whatever we want to do, projects that we want to focus on, training that we want to do, anything like that. Just very broad. I think it's impossible to sharpen your sword purely during your work hours. So having dedicated work hours just towards, that research and development of, the cutting edge, the new, is super pivotal.
Yeah, for sure. And like you were saying, having dedicated time for that, that's allowed throughout the week is super cool, because, we're all doing pen tests week after week after week, and you kind of get into this cycle, right, of just going through the motions, right? And unless you have that time to kind of break up that cycle, you're ingrained in that thinking of just doing everything the same way you've been doing it. And so it's super helpful to have that time to kind of take a step back, to breathe, to kind of think clearly, think outside the box, as we all like to do. So that is very valuable, and something I think we just started doing not too long ago, but it's something that I think has helped us quite tremendously.
I can agree with all that. And I know for me, I'm going to try not to ramble, but I kind of break it down into a couple different sections, a couple different things for me. So first off, I'll say is, you have to be passionate about, what you do. Because that's with IT and InfoSec as a whole, it's one of those things where the moment you stop learning, it's the moment where, okay, you're pretty much guaranteeing you're going to be obsolete and not as marketable. So it's not a thing to where you can just, I think, especially when I see people like, oh, I'm trying to break into this industry. It's not a thing of just get these certs, learn how to do these things, and you're set for the rest of your career. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to continuously grow and learn and accept the fact that the thing that you may specialize in now, that you know very, very well, it's awesome, it's going to evolve. It's going to change. And you should just accept that up front. So, for me, As far as sharpening your swords, I think it comes down, at least currently, to a lot of it is training, um, whether it's formal or informal training. I would also say, keeping up with new tools and techniques and things of that nature. And there's several ways to do that. I think it's also about, joining communities. I think that's one thing that I'm recently more so trying to focus on, because there's only so much you can do on your own. Being a part of a broader community can really help, keep your sword sharpened. Um, and the last thing I'll say is, for me, if you're especially if you're a person like me, I love to read articles. I love seeing things from a conceptual level, but what always helps me best is getting my hands dirty. And so every time I
Yep.
look at something, I'm always like, okay, this is awesome. This is really cool. Let me say this. Let me dedicate time. Whether it's okay, if I'm going to build the thing, or I'm going to, actually do and test out the tool or technique. I think that's like
Yep.
super important.
Yeah, staying curious, right? Is, you see something online, you see something on Twitter, you go to GitHub, you clone the tool, you install it, you run it, you play with it. And part of that, is, for me, doing, primarily internal pen tester, assume breach, red teaming, that kind of stuff. Having a Windows lab is a really pivotal thing for that. So much so that we were talking earlier is like we should write up some videos or blogs about like creating your own lab or something like that, or how to create your own lab and stuff like that. There are a ton of resources online. So if you're curious about making a lab for pen testing, there's tons of resources you can find on YouTube and stuff like that. But for me personally, I have a laptop where it's got like a gajillion gigs of RAM and like 7 terabytes of disk space. So I have like 400 VMs. Not really, I have like 10. But I create an Active Directory domain, a couple DCs, a server, an AD certificate services box, a couple workstations, and then you're good to go. And you can really with just a few VMs, a few machines, like a DC, a web server, a workstation, you can emulate like 80% of the Active Directory attack paths that you'll typically see on a pen test, on an internal pen test with just a few machines. And you can do it all for free with VirtualBox. You can get VMware or whatever you want. But that's something that's been pivotal to me, is taking a tool that I see, running it in my lab, playing around with it, looking at the code, modifying the code, making it do something else that I want that it doesn't already do. There's really a ton of great learning in that. And, I was just doing something over the weekend where I wanted this tool to scan for, local admin rights. Me as a regular user, I want to see, where am I local admin? So with a combination of tools, I kind of hodgepodged a few things together and wrote, my own tool to do that. I learned C# along the way. I learned a little bit about SMB and like network protocols and stuff like that. That can be a really good way to sharpen your skills. It shows initiative, it shows that you're passionate about it. And then if you want to write about it, make videos or whatever, go the extra mile that way. It can show that, you're really taking this stuff to heart and you're really passionate about it. And people like that. I think people share in the energy of that, right? Case in point is why John Hammond has 500 million, subscribers on YouTube, because he's a very passionate guy. He talks about stuff that he's passionate about, even if it's silly or basic or whatever. People enjoy that kind of thing.
So I also say, I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit. I think there's levels to it as well. I remember when I was just starting out in my career, and when you're just now starting out, there's like a million different things.
Yeah.
There can be a lot to kind of narrow down and focus on. And, I know a lot of the questions I had, it's like, well, what should I do? Should I be a generalist? Should I go ahead and just specialize in this one thing? And so I do think there are levels to it as you progress your career, to where, when you're at the beginning, I think you're very much, as far as the knowledge that you want to focus on getting, is you want to be a sponge and to build up that foundation as much as possible. Because the more solid of a foundation you have, when you get to that next level, that's what's really, I feel like, going to set you apart, and what helps propel you further. So to your point of eventually, I think you do get to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to I have this tool, but it doesn't do everything I need it to do. Therefore, I'm going to modify it in some way. Or it might just be as simple as, hey, there are these two tools I use, and I'm going to figure out a way to pipe them together so that way it, streamlines processes and things of that nature. I think all of that are great ways. I think automation really is a great way to kind of sharpen your skill set. And it's also a great way to build up your foundation. I know for me personally, everybody, if you've worked with me before, if I'm in a meeting and we have a problem, the first thing my mind is going to go to is how can we automate it?
Oh, I thought you were going to say PowerShell. That's where my mind goes.
Well, no, so PowerShell, yes, is how we're going to automate it. And at the beginning of my career, I was automating everything with PowerShell. But I think that that is what helped me not only learn PowerShell as well as I know it, but it also forced me to learn, other systems and other other things as well, so that I could use PowerShell to manipulate them or to manage them.
Yep.
So I definitely think that's automation. That's an easy way if you're like kind of at the beginning levels of your career, and you're trying to grow and build. I think automation is the way to go. Find that annoying manual process that everybody hates. Automate it. You'll learn a lot from it, and then everybody will be like, "Wow, thanks for improving this process."
Yep. Something you said that I wanted to build on was, just knowing where you're at with your skills. I think it's very important to kind of inventory your skills as a whole, so you know where to go and what to focus on. I feel like pen testing in general can be a very stressful field because of all the different paths that you can take and all the different skills that your job requires of you sometimes. But I feel like it's very important to take an inventory of where you're at, not just with your technical skills, but with Spencer, where you said your soft skills. Because, if you can do all types of pen testing, you're a super technical dude, but you can't, talk to a client and, reciprocate your knowledge to them, then you're not providing the benefit that somebody with mid-tier knowledge, but they can reciprocate everything that they know to that client can. So, kind of just knowing where you're at and where you need to be, and then focusing your efforts on, what you want to hone next, whether it be, I need to get better at presenting these reports to clients, or there's a different realm of pen testing, or just in general, something that I want to focus on there. So,
yeah. And it's super meta that you say that, right? Because like the whole concept of this podcast, or like part of the concept of the podcast, right, is to get better at speaking, to get better at communicating and conveying ideas and articulating things that are, somewhat technical to a lesser technical audience, or conveying things that are not technical to a technical audience, right? And vice versa. So it's very meta, but also very important, right? If you have the skills to communicate and you have the technical skills to like really get in nitty gritty and solve problems and automate and stuff like that, that's a very highly sought after skill set, right? It's very, very sought after to be a good communicator and also be, very well versed at your craft or whatever that thing is. So very valuable to have just personally and be able to communicate in that way, and rewarding professionally as well.
So one thing I want to toss out you all's way is, how do you all handle focus? Because to your point, there are a million things that you can focus on to cover. And ultimately no singular person is an expert on everything. Yeah. But, so how do you all handle your focus in terms of, it's like, oh man, there's just one thing I want to learn, start down that path. And then it's like, oh, but ooh, look, another shiny thing. And you go down that path. So really curious to see how you all handle it.
Hold on, let me bring up my Chrome tabs. I have like 96 Chrome tabs on my phone, and then like, another 100 on my computer, right? I just bookmark it all, and then eventually, you get to it sometime. But no, like, that's a really good point, right? Because things are so it seems like they're moving so fast, and things are changing so much. And while the more things change, the more things stay the same. We're rehashing old techniques and using them as new again. But for me personally, I just kind of gravitate towards what's interesting. So for me, it's like if it's Windows related, Active Directory or Windows internals, malware development, red teaming, that kind of stuff. That's like my core focus right now. So if it's like something that I'm interested in, I just either, bookmark it in my phone and save it for for a later date, or, if I have time and I'm like looking at it right now, I just dig into it right now kind of thing. The other way that I kind of orient my focus is, through the engagements that we do. So if I have a problem that I need to solve, right? Like if I am trying to bypass an EDR, or if I'm trying to write a script to, look for sensitive files on a file share or something like that. If I have like a need for something, that tends to draw my focus a lot more, a lot sooner than kind of the other stuff that I just see kind of happening on Twitter or stuff that I find. That's kind of how I orient my focus. And then also kind of just my goals, right? What is it that I want to learn this year or over the next few years? I kind of take stock every so often, like, okay, here's kind of my goals of the stuff I want to learn or stuff I want to get better at. C# is one for me. Malware development is another one. Windows internals. So that's kind of how I draw my focus is, what I'm interested in, what my goals are, like stuff to learn, and then, what my problems are currently that I need to like help me with my job or like, complete an engagement or provide more value to a client, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like me having ADHD as a person, having those goals, short term and long term, are super helpful because I can kind of create a bubble of things that I want to learn, focus on, or have as a skill. And so having those in the short term and long term can kind of project where you want to go and what you want to study, so that when anything outside of that bubble gets thrown your way, you can put that on the back burner and say, that's not, I don't have time for that, or that's not currently in my plan, or, something of that nature, to kind of just hone your focus on the things that you need to get done versus, things that come up along the way. And sometimes there's things that come up that are necessary for you to learn in order to learn something that's on your, your learning path. So that's been super helpful for me because in the short term, I wanted to learn how to code. And, to Darrius's point, just get down in the trenches and do it was really helpful in completing that goal for me.
Yeah. What about you, Darrius?
Yeah.
How do you focus your itinerary of massive amounts of things to do?
So very similar, I use Microsoft To Do, so I just have this huge to-do list of things, and eventually I check them off. To your point, I think you hit the nail on the head of naturally, following the things that you're interested in. And I think that's one thing for me, super helpful is I kind of have this belief that we all naturally will gravitate towards getting the things that we truly want done. And so for that point, I've talked with people who are trying to break into the industry or trying to, make this shift in their career. And it's like, oh, I need to learn this thing. And sometimes one of the things I'll notice is doesn't seem like you really enjoy this thing that you're trying to force yourself to learn.
Yeah.
And if you don't enjoy it, it's just going to make it painful. So I definitely think, it's important to gravitate towards the things that you enjoy. If you enjoy, Windows internals and all that other stuff, you're going to get so much further because it's what you actually enjoy versus, if you hate web development, banging your head over and over again, trying to learn, React or every single JavaScript newer JavaScript framework that's out there, you're going to have a bad time and you're just going to shoot. I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice in the long run. So I do think it's important to kind of make sure the reason why you're doing something, the why is extremely important. Not a lot to go a lot of times push you to actually get things done.
Yeah. And if you can marry what you like doing or what you're interested in with things that can help you with your job and also provide like value to, your employers, your clients, or your boss, your team, stuff like that, that is a really good recipe for not only like being successful and like learning better and getting better at your craft, but overall just being more fulfilled, right? People are happiest when they're doing what they want to do. So yeah, to your point, to sharpen your sword as a pen tester, focus on things that you enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's also important to focus on things that you don't know about as well, the unknown, or even sometimes things that you used to struggle with that you might not anymore. Speaking as a testament, in college, when I took my first coding class, I ripped the book in half. I burned it. I hated it. Coding was not easy. I didn't want to learn to do it. My teacher was bad. And then, recently, coding is a skill that I need to have in order to write tools and help me with my job. And so I was like, let me try this again, and had a much better experience. And coding's actually been something that I really enjoy, and is now very applicable to me. And like when I have downtime, it's just something that I can enjoy doing. So just maybe retrying old things or things that you might not be interested in. It might end up helping you a lot.
Keeping an open mind, right? If it was something that you had a bad experience with in the past or something you traditionally would write off, keeping an open mind is important as well, right? Because, me being a Windows guy, Active Directory, internal pen testing, red teaming, sim breach, I still need to keep an open mind for things like web application pen testing or, other disciplines in pen testing to be able to provide more value, to expand my skill set, and expertise. So yeah, definitely keeping an open mind, can help you stay sharp and kind of improve the muscles and kind of energy required to keep pace with things.
So I guess one of the last things I kind of want to talk about before we wrap things up is I think the importance of community. I think that is one of the, and I said it earlier, but I think that's one of the newer ways it seems obvious, but it finally just clicked of how do you sharpen your toolkit? Well, it's by participating in communities, whether it's maybe you're teaching, because one of the best ways to make sure that you really know your stuff is if you can teach others, or whether it's, Spencer, you do this a lot. It's, contributing to open source projects and like building things for the community. That right there, I think is another helpful way, helpful thing. Even if it's as simple as, participating in Twitter discussions and Discords and things of that nature.
Yep.
So I kind of want to explore that a little bit before.
Yeah. And, even as simple, like if you are learning to code, right, contributing to an open source project for that language that you're trying to learn, even if it's just something small, like a bug fix or something like, hey, found this, error here, or found this bug here and fixed it for you, or, contributing in other ways to the open source project. One of my favorite ways that's community based is CTFs / like specifically Holiday Hack. I think Holiday Hack is one of the best community events ever, right? There's a few like really, really popular community events, and Holiday Hack Challenge is, I think, one of the best, right? It's an interesting story, and Ed Scotus and his team always do a really good job with the game and the lore and the story, and it's just like fun and whimsical, and it's like very stress-free. It's very beginner friendly. So I always recommend people taking a look at Holiday Hack Challenge. It's a gamified CTF, but it's awesome. It's really well done, and the community is great. I don't think I've ever seen anyone be negative in like the Sans Holiday Hack Discord or anything like that. It's really great. So that's one that I would recommend looking at from a community perspective, as well as contributing to open source. But CTFs, especially something like Holiday Hack, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think a big thing to go into the community aspect is do not be afraid to be ignorant to some topics and just not know things. I think a lot of people do themselves a disservice because they're scared to ask questions. That's something that I have not been scared to do. I feel like I ask a million questions to Spencer, Darrius, Brad. Everybody on our team gets probably 10 to 12 messages a week from me, just like, hey, can you take a look at this? Hey, can you help explain this to me? So utilizing the people around you is huge for community too, coworkers or people that have been there longer than you that might have more experience than you. Don't be afraid to, ask questions.
Yeah, because we all stand on the shoulders of giants, that phrase. And the stuff that we've learned from someone else or from some other place. And so passing it, paying it forward and passing that on is a big part of that. But, to echo your point, Tyler.
And I guess like the last thing I'll say is just get involved. There's a million ways to do it. Get involved in your local ISSA chapter or OWASP chapter or InfraGard. Just anything that's local or digital, whatever works for you. But I do think it's important that you get involved and at least some form of community.
Yeah, present at a conference or make some videos or write a blog post or share your own tools. All those things are going to help you sharpen your mental acuity, your technical aptitudes, your skill set, and everything in between.
I wish I had thought about this beforehand, because this would be a great segue to be like, so you can join our community, you can join our Discord.
Hey, maybe we need a public Discord. I don't know. Hey, anything's possible. I mean, that's the cool thing to do nowadays, is to have a Discord. So maybe after this call, we'll create a
we should make a Discord for everybody.
a public Discord, and then we're gonna have T-shirts and maybe we'll have a conference at one point.
Yeah, why don't we already have merch? Like, we're missing out.
Yeah, I mean, we have our own merch that I created for us last year. That is very near and dear to my heart.
Jules.
But yeah, maybe the next conference we go to, we can have some swag to give away or something.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Cool. So that's our episode. Hopefully this was helpful to you as pen testers, hackers, red teamers who are trying to sharpen your skills. Kind of hear from us who've been kind of doing it for a few years, of what we do, what works for us, what we think is helpful for us, and hopefully that's helpful to you in some way. So yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would rate it or like it, share it with your community, share it on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. Help us get the word out about the good word. You can find us at offsec.blog and at secureIT360.com. We have new episodes every Wednesday. Yeah, that's it. We'll see you next time.